Greetings, this is Brother Eli with another episode of Bible Truth Revealed. Today's topic is, who is the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7? Who is the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7? When Christians and Christianlites are presented with the fact that there is no Jesus Christ in the Hebrew Scriptures, also known as the Tanakh or Old Testament, they often reply that Jesus Christ is the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7. So today we will be exploring that claim, and we will discover that in fact the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7 represents the nation of Israel, who will inherit the kingdom of the Most High in the last days. I will be reading from the Brenton's Septuagint. Let's turn to Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 to 14. Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 to 14 in the Brenton's Septuagint reads thus: I beheld in the night vision, and lo, one coming with the clouds of heaven as the Son of Man, and he came on to the Ancient of Days, and was brought near to him. Verse 14. And to him was given the dominion, and the honor, and the kingdom, and all nations, tribes, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. At first glance, this seems like the perfect passage for Christians and Christianlites to hijack in their efforts to prove that Jesus Christ is in the Hebrew Scriptures or Old Testament. However, if they can cherry-pick two verses in Daniel chapter 7 and claim that it is talking about their leader, Jesus Christ, what is to stop other religions from making the same claim about their own leaders? In fact, Muslims claim that the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7 is the Prophet Muhammad. So, who is correct? The Christians or the Muslims? The only way to determine the identity of the Son of Man is to study Daniel chapter 7 in context. The Hebrew Scriptures or Old Testament cannot be understood by cherry-picking verses and claiming that they are about Jesus Christ. They must be understood in context. However, most Christians and Christianlites hate context. On the website www.discoveringislam.org, there is a lengthy article entitled Prophet Muhammad is the Son of Man, which lays out an argument that Jesus Christ could not possibly be the Son of Man spoken of in Daniel chapter 7. I will be quoting from this website. Quote number 1 says this: Not alone is he the Son of God, and not alone the Son of Man. For if it be permitted to call God Father, then not only Jesus, but every prophet and righteous believer is particularly a son of God. So in other words, Jesus Christ is not the only person who can claim to be the Son of God. If God is your Father, you are his Son. I'll keep reading. In the same way, if Jesus were really the son of Joseph the carpenter, and had 4 brothers and several married sisters, as the Gospels pretend, then why alone should he assume the strange appellation of the Son of Man, which is common to any human being? This is saying if Jesus was really the son of Joseph, as most Hebrew Israelites believe, and Jesus had 4 brothers and several sisters, why is he alone the son of man? Joseph is the man that he is the son of, which means that his siblings, his brethren, were also the sons of Joseph. If you have a father, you're the son of your father. So why is it that Jesus is the son of man when any human being could claim to be the son of man? That's the argument that's being made by discoveringislam.org. Now let's see whether the Hebrew Scriptures support the idea that any man could be called the son of man. Turn with me to Ezekiel chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. Ezekiel chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And I, which means Ezekiel, saw, and fell upon my face, and heard the voice of one speaking. And he said to me, which means Ezekiel, Son of man, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak to thee. So we see that in the context of Ezekiel chapter 2, Ezekiel is the son of man, which demonstrates that, yes, the son of man could be referring to any human being depending on the context. Verse 2 says this, and the Spirit came upon me, and took me up, and raised me, and set me on my feet. And I, that's Ezekiel, heard him speaking to me. Verse 3, and he said to me, Son of man, I send thee forth to the house of Israel, them that provoke me, who have provoked me, they and their fathers, to this day. Now let's go to Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8 is a chapter after the chapter we are going to be studying today. Let us see who was the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 8. Only the context can tell us who the Son of Man is in any particular passage, because any human being could be referred to as the Son of Man, depending on the context of the passage we're reading. Daniel chapter 8 verse 17 says this, and he came and stood near where I, that's Daniel, stood. And when he came, I was struck with awe, and fell upon my face. But he said to me, Understand, Son of man, for yet the vision is for an appointed time. So in Daniel chapter 8, the Son of Man was the prophet Daniel himself. Quote number 2 from discoveringislam.org says this, we can produce many sound arguments to prove the identity of the Son of Man with Prophet Muhammad only. So clearly, Muslims are as confident that the Son of Man in Daniel 7 is the Prophet Muhammad as Christians are that the same Son of Man is Jesus Christ. However, I must point out that in the article on discoveringislam.org, the evidence for the Son of Man being the Prophet Muhammad is all taken from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and from the Apocalypses, the book of Enoch, the Apocalypse of Moses, the Apocalypse of Baruch, and the Apocalypse of Ezra. Quote number 3 says this: these apocalypses not only do not belong to the canon of the Hebrew Bible, but also they are not even included among the Apocrypha. So notice that these apocalypses, the book of Enoch, the apocalypse of Moses, the apocalypse of Baruch, and the apocalypse of Ezra are not part of the Hebrew Scriptures. The dilemma faced by Christians and Muslims is that they both seek to identify the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7 by appealing to sources outside of the Hebrew Scriptures or Old Testament. Both groups appeal to the fake Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in order to support their conclusions. However, while these forged New Testament documents lead Christians to conclude that Jesus Christ is the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7, these same forgeries convince Muslims that the Prophet Muhammad is the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7. Let's look at Psalm 111, verse 10. Psalm 111, verse 10. It reads, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and all that act accordingly have a good understanding. His praise endures forever and ever." Christians and Muslims do not fear the Most High Yah. If they did, they would keep His commandments, and He would give them the wisdom and understanding required to identify the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7, among other things. Let's examine the first of the 10 commandments as stated in Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. It says, "Thou shalt have no other gods beside me." The pagan New Testament teaches the children of Israel to have another God beside the Most High God. This pagan God is called Jesus Christ. Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 and 6 in the KJV. Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 and 6, it says this: "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God." So the Most High God told the children of Israel to have no other God beside Him. Yet we are being told by these pagan Christians that there's this other God called Jesus Christ, who is equal with the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that false God does not think it's robbery to be equal with the Most High God. Let's hear what the Most High God says about this. Isaiah chapter 46, verse 5 and verses 8 to 9. Isaiah chapter 46, verse 5 and verses 8 to 9. The Most High says this: "To whom have ye compared me?" See, consider, ye that go astray. When we compare other gods or fake deities with the Most High God by claiming that they're in the form of God, and when we declare that there's another God that's equal to the Most High God, we are going astray. The Most High God says that when you compare Him to this fake Jesus Christ that was made up by the oppressors of His people, you are going astray. Verse 8 says this: "Remember ye these things and groan. Repent, ye that have gone astray. The children of Israel need to repent from the idolatry of following Jesus Christ. Return in your heart, verse 9, and remember the former things that were of old. For I am God. The word I is a singular personal pronoun. It does not mean we. I is one. The Most High God is one God, and there is no other God. He says, for I am God, and there is none other beside me. There is none other beside the Most High God. So when he said in Exodus 20 verse 3, thou shalt have no other gods beside me, that rules out fake Jesus Christ. The children of Israel need to repent. Now let's study Daniel chapter 7 verses 13 to 14 in the context of the entire chapter in order to identify the Son of Man who appeared before the Most High God, before the Ancient of Days. Daniel chapter 7 verses 13 to 14. And I beheld in the night vision, and lo, one coming with the clouds of heaven as the Son of Man, and he came unto the Ancient of Days, and was brought near to him. And to him was given the dominion, and the honor, and the kingdom, and all nations, tribes, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. Let's keep reading. Verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit in my body trembled, and the visions of my head troubled me. So Daniel was troubled. He was worried about what he was seeing. Verse 16 says, and I drew near to one of them that stood by, and I sought to learn of him the truth of all these things. Daniel didn't say, oh, look, that must be Jesus. No, Daniel said he went and spoke to one of them that was nearby him and asked him, tell me the truth about these things. Could you explain this dream? Could you explain this vision to me? And he told me the truth and made known to me the interpretation of the things. So we are going to find out the truth, the interpretation of what Daniel saw, because the answer is in the same chapter 7. There's no need to go to pagan forgeries in order to identify the Son of Man when his identity is revealed in the same Daniel chapter 7. Verse 17 says, these four beasts are four kingdoms that shall rise up on the earth. The mention of four beasts should encourage us to go back to the beginning of the chapter in order to learn about these four beasts. This is how context guides our understanding and dictates the meaning of biblical passages. So let's go back to verse 1. So we can read in context and learn about these four beasts. Daniel chapter 7 verse 1. In the first year of Balthasar, king of the Chaldeans, Daniel had a dream. So we know it's a dream. And visions of his head upon his bed. And he wrote his dream. Verse 2. I, Daniel, beheld, and lo, the four winds of heaven blew violently upon the great sea. Verse 3, and there came up four great beasts out of the sea, differing from one another. Verse 4, the first was as a lioness, and her wings as an eagle's. I beheld until her wings were plucked, and she was lifted off from the earth, and she stood on human feet. And the man's heart was given to her. Verse 5, and behold, a second beast like a bear, and it supported itself on one side, and there were 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, arise, devour much flesh. Verse 6. After this one I looked, and behold, another wild beast as a leopard, and it had 4 wings of a bird upon it. And the wild beast had 4 heads, and power was given to it. Verse 7. After this I looked, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and exceedingly strong, and its teeth were of iron, devouring and crushing to atoms, and it trampled the remainder with his feet. And it was altogether different from the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Verse 8. I noticed his horns, and behold, another little horn came up in the midst of them. And before it 3 of the former horns were rooted out. And behold, there were eyes as the eyes of a man in this horn, and the mouth speaking great things. Let's keep reading. Verse 9. I beheld until the thrones were set, and the Ancient of Days sat, and his raiment was white as snow, and the hair of his head as pure wool. His throne was as a flame of fire, and his wheels burning fire. Verse 10. A stream of fire rushed forth before him. Thousands ministered to him, and 10,000s of myriads attended upon him. The judgment sat, and the books were opened. Verse 11. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which that horn spoke, until the wild beast was slain and destroyed, and his body given to be burnt with fire. Verse 12. And the dominion of the rest of the wild beasts was taken away, but a prolonging of life was given them for certain times. So now we know the context of Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. Let's keep reading, and we'll get the interpretation. Verse 13 says, I beheld in the night vision, and lo, one coming with the clouds of heaven as the Son of Man. And he came unto the Ancient of Days, and was brought near to him. Verse 14, and to him was given the dominion, the honor, and the kingdom, and all nations, tribes, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. So notice that earlier, when we read about the beast, the first one was as a lioness, so in the form of a lioness. The second was like a bear, in the form of a bear. Its appearance was like a bear. The third beast was as a leopard, so its appearance was as a leopard. The fourth beast was altogether different from the beast before it, but it was a wild beast with 10 horns. And now we see the Son of Man. So this is an individual that appears like a son of man, a human being. He looks like a person as opposed to looking like a beast. The appearances are important. We'll understand why in a minute. And all of the dominion that was taken from the wild beast in verse 12 was given to this one that was in appearance like the Son of Man. And the honor and the kingdom, all power was given to him, and his kingdom would never be destroyed. So verse 14 again says, and to him was given the dominion and the honor and the kingdom, and all nations, tribes, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. Verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit in my body trembled, and the visions of my head troubled me. 16. And I drew near to one of them that stood by, and I sought to learn of him the truth of all these things. And he told me the truth, and made known to me the interpretation of the things. Now that we know Daniel's dream, let us learn the interpretation of the dream. Verse 17 says, these 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms that shall rise up on the earth. So this is why I spoke about the appearance of a lioness, the appearance of a bear, the appearance of a leopard, and so forth, because this is not about beasts. This is about kingdoms, but each kingdom was represented by a different beast that had a different appearance. And the reason it had a different appearance is because it's a different kingdom. This distinguishes between the kingdoms. Verse 18, which shall be taken away. So all of these kingdoms that are represented by beasts will be taken away. And the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess it forever and ever. The saints are represented by the one with the appearance as a son of man. He is the one that was given dominion and power and the kingdom to possess it forever and ever. The saints of the Most High will be given the dominion, the power, the kingdom to possess it forever and ever. Just like the beast represented 4 heathen kingdoms, the Son of Man represents the kingdom of the saints of the Most High. So now that we understand that the 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms, we should be asking the question, who are the saints? It's one thing to know that the Son of Man represents the saints, but you need to know who the saints are to get the full understanding. So let's turn to Psalm chapter 49 verse 5 in Brenton's Septuagint. Psalm 49 verse 5. It is Psalm 50 verse 5 in the KJV. Psalm 50 verse 5 in the KJV. It says this, assemble ye his saints to him, those that have engaged in a covenant with him upon sacrifices. The saints of the Most High are those who have engaged in a covenant with the Most High upon sacrifices. There is only one nation or kingdom of people who have engaged or who have made a covenant with the Most High God upon sacrifices. That's the kingdom or nation of Israel. The Israelites, the children of Israel, are the saints of the Most High. Psalm 148 verse 14. Psalm 148 verse 14. It reads, and he shall exalt the horn of his people. There is a hymn for all his saints, even of the children of Israel, a people who draw near to him. We see here that his people are his saints, which are the children of Israel. The children of Israel made a covenant with the Most High God upon sacrifices. So just to reiterate, just like the 4 beasts in Daniel chapter 7 represent 4 kingdoms, the Son of Man in the same chapter also represents a kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. And just like man is better than beasts, the Son of Man is better than the 4 beasts, which means that the children of Israel are better than the heathen nation. And you find that all throughout the Hebrew Scriptures or Old Testament. The children of Israel are a people chosen and loved by the Most High God to be his particular people. Daniel chapter 7, let's keep reading from verse 19. Daniel chapter 7 from verse 19. Then I inquired carefully concerning the 4th beast, for it differed from every other beast, exceeding dreadful. Its teeth were of iron, and its claws of brass, devouring and utterly breaking to pieces, and it trampled the remainder with its feet. Verse 20. And concerning its horns that were in its head, and the other that came up, and rooted up some of the former, which had eyes, and the mouth speaking great things. And his look was bolder than the rest. Verse 21. And I beheld, and that horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So we see here that that horn that represents a particular king in that fourth kingdom made war with the saints, or the children of Israel, and prevailed against them. Verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came. So the Most High came, and he gave judgment to the saints of the Most High. And the time came on, and the saints possessed the kingdom. Now, this hasn't yet happened because the saints, which are the children of Israel, do not yet possess the kingdom. But this is a prophecy that we can look forward to, that although we are being warred against, although we are being oppressed, although the enemies of God are prevailing against us, we know that when the Most High comes to judge this fourth kingdom, we will possess the kingdom. We will be rulers upon this earth. Verse 23, and he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall excel all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, just like we're seeing today, and trample and destroy it. Verse 24, and his 10 horns are 10 kings that shall arise, and after them shall arise another, who shall exceed all the former ones in wickedness, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Verse 25, and he shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change times and law. And power shall be given into his hand for a time, and times, and half a time. Verse 26, and the judgment has sat, and they shall remove his dominion to abolish it, and to destroy it utterly. We see again that we are currently living in the time of the fourth kingdom that is wearing out the saints of the Most High, the children of Israel, and that has changed times so that the world now celebrates the new year in the dead of winter. However, the Most High will soon destroy the fourth kingdom and establish his own kingdom, which would be inherited by the children of Israel. Verse 27 says this, and the kingdom, and the power, and the greatness of the kings that are under the whole heaven were given to the saints of the Most High. And his kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all powers shall serve and obey him. Verse 28, hitherto is the end of the matter. So Daniel is telling us this is the end of the interpretation. There's no need to go looking in pagan sources in order to understand Daniel's dream, in order to comprehend his vision, because it was just explained to us. The 4 beasts represent 4 kingdoms that will come upon the earth, but there will also be a 5th kingdom, the one represented by the Son of Man, the one that takes the appearance of the Son of Man. And this kingdom is the saints of the Most High, the children of Israel, the nation or kingdom of Israel that will receive all power, dominion, and rulership of the entire earth when judgment is given by the Most High God. Verse 28 again, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance was changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. The Most High always provides multiple confirmations of what he reveals in the Hebrew Scriptures or Old Testament. As such, the children of Israel should be able to search elsewhere in the Hebrew Scriptures for confirmation that the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7 is indeed the nation of Israel. We do not need to rely on the pagan New Testament or apocalyptic forgeries like the Christians and Muslims do. There is a parallel dream in Daniel chapter 2, which we can use to confirm the understanding that we have gained from studying Daniel chapter 7 in context. I encourage you to read all of Daniel chapter 2 on your own. However, today I will be focusing on the verses that can help us to understand the correlation between King Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel's dream in chapter 7. In Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream in which he saw a great image. Its head was made of gold. Its hands and breast and arms were made of silver, its belly and thighs of brass, and its legs were of iron. Each of these four metals represented a different kingdom, in the same way that the four beasts in Daniel chapter 7 represented four kingdoms. Let us turn to Daniel chapter 2. I will be reading verse 37 and verses 39 to 40, which give us the interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Daniel chapter 2, verse 37 and verses 39 to 40. It reads thus: Thou, O king, art a king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given a powerful and strong and honorable kingdom. Verse 39. Thou art the head of gold, and after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and a third kingdom, which is the brass, which shall have dominion over all the earth. Verse 40. And a fourth kingdom, which shall be strong as iron beats to powder and subdues all things, so shall it beat to powder and subdue. We see four different kingdoms. In Daniel chapter 7, Daniel was particularly interested in the fourth beast, which is the fourth kingdom. So let's compare the fourth kingdom that we have just read about in Daniel chapter 2 with the fourth beast or kingdom in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 verse 19 and also verse 23. Daniel chapter 7 verse 19 and verse 23. Verse 19. Then I inquired carefully concerning the fourth beast, for it differed from every other beast, exceeding dreadful. Its teeth were of iron, and its claws of brass, devouring and utterly breaking to pieces, and it trampled the remainder with its feet. Verse 23. And he said, The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall excel all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and trample and destroy it. We can clearly see that the fourth kingdom, which shall beat to powder and subdue all things in Daniel chapter 2, is the same fourth kingdom that would utterly break to pieces, devour, trample, and destroy all things in Daniel chapter 7. Furthermore, as the gold, silver, brass, and iron of the image in Daniel chapter 2 is synonymous with the four beasts in Daniel chapter 7, we can be certain that this is a parallel dream with a parallel interpretation. Let's continue reading from Daniel chapter 7 verse 24 to better understand the fourth beast or kingdom. Daniel chapter 7 verse 24. And his 10 horns are 10 kings that shall arise, and after them shall arise another, who shall exceed all the former ones in wickedness, and he shall subdue 3 kings. The parallel interpretation in Daniel chapter 2 also speaks of those kings in verse 44. Daniel chapter 2 verse 44. Daniel chapter 2 verse 44 says this: And in the days of those kings the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and his kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall beat to pieces and grind to powder all other kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Here we learn that those four kingdoms, which are represented by the gold, silver, brass, and iron in Daniel chapter 2, and by the four beasts in Daniel chapter 7, will be replaced by a fifth kingdom. This is a kingdom of Yah, which will be given to the saints of the Most High, who are also known as the Israelites, or the nation of Israel. Let's read about this in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, verse 27. Daniel chapter 7, verse 27. And the kingdom and the power and the greatness of the kings that are under the whole heaven were given to the saints of the Most High, and his kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all powers shall serve and obey him. In conclusion, just like each beast in Daniel chapter 7 and each part of the image in Daniel chapter 2 represents a heathen kingdom or nation, the Son of Man in Daniel chapter 7 represents the kingdom or nation of Israel, who will inherit the kingdom of the Most High in the last days. And with that, I say, Shalom. Remember, if you find these teachings beneficial and you would like to see more, please like, share, and subscribe.